All right, so this video, I'm just going to continue on. This is all basically me working with one big example, but splitting it up based on a topic. And so this topic, I'm just going to start to broach the subject of what's called properties in applications. And so what I want to do is currently I must press the plot button again when I change the color. So if you remember when I ran it before, I had to hit the plot button again to change the color of the plot. So what I want to do is I want to add some functionality, just basic functionality, that if the radio button changes while the app is open, it just automatically changes the color of the plot without me having to click the plot button again. That way I only have to interact with one thing instead of two. So let me just show you what I mean. So if we were to go in here and run this again, so everything works. I'm going to have it be 3.14, some random amplitude, and hit plot. So if you see, it plots red. But if I change this color to blue, it doesn't change the plot to blue. I have to go click plot again. And so that's what I mean. Is I want it to, if I were to change this to red right now, I just want it to automatically change the plot here. And so how do I do that? And there was a hint on that slide, is I'm interacting with something. So remember, interaction with any of these components means I need to add a callback. And so let's go look at the callbacks for this radio group. And so I can do my selection changed function, which basically means that if I change which selection is chosen, I want to run a callback. Let's add a selection change function. And so what this is going to do is it's going to do selected button. It's going to grab the color button group selected object. And so what I can do there is do .text. It's because this selected object group is going to have some text associated with it. And so I want to grab that. So like if I were to just go down here and do app.color button group selected object. What are the classes in that? There should be a text class. It doesn't look like there is one very easily, but there is. Don't get me wrong, there is. And so when I've selected this button, and so I want to go through and actually change something. And so let's say if my selected button variable is red, right? Because the three different texts, if I go to my design root, what if it's red? So I'm going to do like I did before. I just want to test one thing. So if this is equal to red, then I want to change h.color is equal to r right here, right? There is a problem here, is that you can't do this exactly. What I need to use, if you remember, is a string compare function, which does basically what I just said. I want to compare the string of the selected function to red, make sure that selected button is equal to red. And if that's the case, then do this. There's going to be a problem, though, is that, and so my main question I have for you all, it's obviously a hypothetical question because you guys can't answer me. But I want to just run it and just see what happens. So I do this. I'm going to go here, 3.14, plot. Everything seems to work. But if you notice, it's not doing anything. Now, this doesn't seem to be running. And the question is why? What's wrong with this code? And there's really one major reason, and it actually should have thrown me an error. I don't know why it didn't. But the reason you can't do this, and probably might just be because this code never executed. And so the reason is that you can't just do this. You can't just use this variable that's in a different function. And the reason is because this function doesn't quite work that way. So if you think about it from MATLAB function terms, any variable that's in a MATLAB function can only be used inside of that MATLAB function. And so my goal is actually going to be I want to use this kind of same logic here, and I want to use it in this color function group selection change callback, right? Because I know that this code works. I know that it'll check each of these values, but I want to do it every time that this color group selection change function happens, every time I go and change that radial group. Let's see if this works instead. From what I just explained to you, it shouldn't, but this code should work fine. I'm going to go to 3.14 here, plot, and now if I change this, if you notice, it's not working. And why is that? Because I created this h variable, right? And it should be in the workspace. It should be somewhere that I can grab it and I can manipulate my plot with that, right? That's logical. The problem is that, again, these are in functions. These are in MATLAB functions. Variables inside MATLAB functions can only be used inside those functions unless it's being manipulated with variables that are getting passed outside. And so the way I can do that now, and so I don't know if that made sense to you. I guess I shouldn't move on until I explain that even further. So it needs to be in terms of some variable that's global. That's global to the entire application in this case. And so the only variable that's true for is this app variable, right? I'm using that app in every single one of these functions because it's an input. And so is there a way I can use that app, that whole app variable, that app object, and do something with that? Right, because that's the only global variable I really have to work with. And so in these applications, there is something called a property that is basically a global property. So if I go in here and add a private property, which basically means it's a property only used inside of this app, I can now create something that is used inside of this application, and it's going to be used across every single function in this application. And so I'm going to call this H. Okay, so I've got this property. Now does this work? And I'm just going to tell you, I don't even need to test it. The reason it doesn't work is because this H is now part of the application. So I need to go in and do app.h. 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 Because this is now basically a class or an object inside of this greater variable here. So let's do app.h, app.h. And now if I go and I change this app.h color, if I change this in this function, what it will now do is it will change it over the global application. It'll do it for the entire app, not just what's inside that function. And so what it's going to do, what that'll do is that will go and it will change this H here. And so let's go ahead and run this and test it. Let's do 3.14 again. Let's bring it up to 40 and hit plot. And if you see, it's changing it dynamically. And that's because every time I click one of these buttons, it runs my callback for this color button selection group change. Basically, when I change the selection of that color button group, it runs this callback and it changes this global application, this global property, which is inside app, which gets fed into every function and is like a global variable for the entire application. And so because I added this property, I can now change it. So I've changed it in these functions. When I hit the plot button, it changes that variable, that property, to be a plot variable. It's holding all the values of that line. And now I can use that here, and I can use that app.h in any function. So I could create anything. And so in the next video, I wanted this to be a short one to show you how to use these properties. I'm going to extend this. And I'm going to extend it to, let's change the line type. Let me show you another component and change the line type. But now I've given you a lot of the tools to create these applications and manipulate them and use them in a lot of different ways. I don't know if you've realized that so far, but you could do a lot of things with these now. You could have them run different scripts. You could have them do anything you really want and feed, and you can now feed properties and variables into each of the functions that you need to. And so just with these few things I've taught you already, on top of all the other MATLAB knowledge I've taught you, you could create a GUI that does almost anything. Like there's people last year did use these GUIs to basically help them solve the Simulink final project. I'm not going to tell you more than that, but people did that, and it was kind of it was something I didn't expect. and it helped them solve it a lot faster than some of the other methods. So there's a lot of flexibility here using this tool I just showed you. And so next time I'm going to show you another extension of that, but I just wanted to show you, hey, look, you can now update these as they get changed, which is a big step, honestly, from where we were before.